Okay, this is my final dedicated video to the Colorbox Stylus tool product, and it is basically your wand, your plastic wand, and your foam tip. These tips used to come in different incarnations from Clearsnap. There was the white foam tips, which, you know, accept ink and are absorbent, and then they had their black foam tips. I don't know if they called it foam. It was some kind of denser foam material that when heated, you could press it into a stamp, and when it cooled, which is very quickly, you just remove it. Didn't do any kind of damage to the rubber or anything like that, but you'd have the reverse impression of that stamp, whatever stamp you did in there. And you could ink it up and get a reverse impression within that type of shape that you depressed it into. So the types of shapes they had were round. There was a leaf one, which kind of looked like this oval one here, but it was pointed. And I'm trying to remember, oh, the other one was a heart. And there were maybe one or two other tips in there. I don't know, you'd have to help me out with that one. I think I had a kit of it somewhere, but I don't know if I still have those other types of shapes. But anyways, if you've been a long-time stamper, you probably had these tools sitting around in your, I don't know, wherever you keep your supplies, and initially you probably never used them. If you didn't use them for the ink application method, and you, I don't know, you bought them just because there weren't a lot of accessories back then, and these look really cool. So I know a lot of people that had them. They had them way before I did. And the comment that I heard was, at the time when I started using these, is that no one used them. And I don't know. They're really fun tools to have, but they just weren't. I don't know what market they were going after, because no one used them as that type of, I don't know, tool, you know, to be used for kind of abstract, you know, geometric patterns within a given space. Okay, so that being said, these are really great ergonomic tools. They fit in the hand really well. And I find that when I'm applying ink, these work really nicely because the sponge is an absorbent material. It really takes your ink, and I'm able to apply it very nicely. There's all kinds of different tools that you can do that type of methodology with in terms of ink applications. I've talked about cosmetic wedge sponges before, and I've used those, and those work fine for me. It's just a little bit different when you're doing something like this and kind of dabbing on like that. I mean, I could do it, and if that's all I had, I'm fine with that, and I believe in people using the things that they have access to or that they can afford. These tools are a little bit more than, you know, sponges like that, but these are some of the most comfortable ergonomic tools for that type of application process. Clearsnap, this is my final order. Not just these, I have some more, because these tend to go really fast, but this is my final order with Clearsnap for these. I don't know if anyone else is going to acquire that tooling, if they even had these manufactured here domestically. I'm talking about the United States. I don't know if they order these from overseas or what, but tooling for this type of thing usually is very expensive. You know, getting the dies made and that whole plastic, you know, pressing process is probably very expensive. I have no idea where they, if they make these tips domestically, but it would use a die cutter with, you know, a lot of these different tips, and they had all kinds of different tips and whatnot. But I don't know. When I heard that Clearsnap was closing shop, I had about a week to get my last order in, and I did so, knowing that, you know, I wanted these, and a lot of people that use these might want these in the future, but I don't know. anytime I go to a convention too, we can sell, I don't know, when people see these being used, we can sell, I don't know, 20 of these kits right here. And then the people that have bought the wands before order or pick up maybe a pack of more tips or something like that. But anyways, the longevity of the tips, which has never been more important than now, because, you know, in the future these might not be available. You know, you're just getting existing, you know, residual stock that's out there now at this point in time. But I've always kind of included one of these little cards right here, and I've done videos on how to retain, you know, the integrity of the foam without tearing it and whatnot. But this little card right here I had printed up a long time ago, and it just says Stylus Tool Tip Care Tips, you know, tips for your tips. Apply with light pressure, don't, you know, smash this down. A lot of people thought, you know, if you're using a very light color of ink on there and if you start applying it, it's going on a very light value of that color. So sometimes it didn't get dark enough, you know, fast enough. So people start scrubbing, which is my second little tip there. Don't scrub with the tips. Don't scrub back and forth. Otherwise these can tear very quickly. They're just sponges. And apply the ink in the same direction, okay? I keep my ink being applied in one direction. I don't scrub back and forth. I guess you can, you know, you can kind of swirl this around if you want to, but you just don't want to depress it really hard, especially on a dry piece of paper. And my last tips were, or tip was to store the tips in a Ziploc bag. Let's say I'm not using these tips for a very long time. I'm talking months or something like that. And especially if you're in a very arid area and whatnot, I mean, you could just leave your ink in those tips. It's just like leaving, you know, a stamp pad, you know, wet. We don't wash these out after every usage and then re-ink them or something like that. So these tips right here, because that foam tip right there essentially becomes like a little ink pad on a stick like that. It'd be cool if they had little caps that we can put over them or something like that, but they don't. So you can store them in a bag like this just so it doesn't completely dry out. Now, I just have my tips. When I'm doing these videos, I just stack up my tips like this, and I kind of wash them when I have, I don't know, all of them have been used. I have more than this right here, but I don't know when I used that green last. I can still see a little residual green on there. It's probably been a couple weeks, though. Let's see if there's any color left on any of these. Yeah, it might have dried out. But there was one I was using earlier that had quite a bit of color. I don't know. Here, okay, you see that blue right there? Yeah, there's still quite a bit in there, okay? See that right there? That's just residual ink in there. And like I said, these have been sitting around. Some of these have been sitting around for 2 weeks, okay? And I just kind of consolidate, you know, and I do all of my cleaning at one time. I just put them under the sink and just run a little bit of water. Sometimes I'll stop up the sink and I'll just kind of dab them out. Or what I can do is I can just take a paper towel, not this one right here, but I'd squeeze some water in it, and I just depress the sponge tip down into it, and it leaches out all that ink. All right. In terms of care, your tips, if you use them like I do and you run through a range of values, eventually you're going to get a lot of the darker tones in that sponge right there. It does stain them, but as long as you kind of leach out all that color, you know, the wet color, when you're cleaning them out, you can use that even if it looks black like that, and you can go to, you know, yellow or something like that, and it's not going to pollute the pad, just so long as you cleaned it out thoroughly and you leached all the residual, you know, whatever color was in there before out of there. And it's easy to do. It doesn't take a long time to do. For water-based media like dye-based inks and pigment inks, I just use water. I find that sufficient, but I don't know. Sometimes if I have 15 of these or something like that, and they've been sitting around some for, you know, a month or something like that, just to kind of expedite the process. I don't know if it does or not. I might put a little bit of detergent, a very diluted amount, or just hand cleaner in a plate or something like that, and I'll just squeeze it out, and I can see, you know, color coming out of there. It starts to suds up a little bit, but then I'm really careful just to really rinse these out completely clean of that cleanser, whatever I used in there. Okay, so anyways, I don't find specialty cleaners necessary for anything like that, you know, or for this purpose. So anyways, take good care of your tips right there. And this is not a sales pitch, because I hate sales pitches and people trying to do that with me. But I would say that if you ever felt inclined to get these, and that's something on your, I don't know, list, depending on when you watch this video, or, you know, these are also sold out there, you know, on the web or whatever, I would get them maybe sooner than later, because Clearsnap is no longer manufacturing anything that didn't come in as far as an order went before July 31st, 2019. So I'm really going to miss the company, and, you know, in general, they've been around for a very long time. They were at some of the first conventions I went to in the late 80s. It was kind of 87 or something like that. They used to be at the Carson show, and they, I don't know, after those shows, they probably never went to a retail show again. They were always at the wholesale shows, but as far as retail ones went, but Colorbox, inks and things like that, they've been really around for a very long time, and then they came up with a very nice product in the Stylus tool here. I don't know if we'll ever see another incarnation like that again. Like I said, the tooling for something like this is very expensive to do, and the kind of the retail storefront infrastructure for the industry is really gone. So those are the types of places that would kind of showcase your new products, like something like this. So I don't know if some place would invest in, you know, kind of specialized tooling for a dedicated tool like that. You know, I don't know, a lot of places kind of repurpose kind of existing tools like makeup sponges and things like that, you know, that already exist out there, and to just rebrand it, but they're not coming up with this tool on their own and developing it and paying for that type of tooling and dyes and molds and things like that. So these are great. We have them for a little while, I would guess, but like I said, when we start going to those conventions, you know, these things go pretty fast, because there's a lot of people that are kind of new to rubber stamping and whatnot that are out those shows that weren't out there and bought these when they were kind of fresh on the market and we were being advertised in all of the different various magazines. So Colorbox Stylus tool, my favorite color application tool that I've come across so far. When these are gone and whatnot, I'll probably start utilizing some other forms of tools. I'll probably go back to the cosmetic sponges and whatnot. These types of tools are okay, but they're not quite as great, you know, good for my purpose in terms of applying a lot of ink and a lot of layers of ink. This is good for kind of softer applications of ink, but this kind of process takes a little bit more time. There's larger applicators as well, and maybe I'll try those out as well, but the look is a little bit different. I think that one is not better than the other one. This one just gives me a different type of look that I'm kind of you know, a big fan of in terms of the, you know, really glazed saturation. So boy, I'm going to miss these. So anyways, I hope you liked the video. Sorry it's not better news and whatnot, but I don't know. That's what we have to work with in the industry. Use what you can and get them while you can, I would say. All right.